Call to order the Marin. Call to order. I now call to order the Marin Wildlife Executive Committee regular meeting of June 5th, 2025. Roll call. Martina, please call the roll to ensure that we have a quorum present.
Certainly. And then, Anne, can you hear us okay out there? Yes. Okay, great. Starting with Director Goings. Director McMillan.
Yes.
Director Rodoni.
Here.
Director Hilliard.
Here.
And let the minutes show that Director Kurtz will not be joining us this morning.
Agenda adjustments. I will entertain requests to adjust the order of the agenda. Are there any agenda adjustments? Hearing none, we'll move to item 4, open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the executive committee at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the committee. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, the committee is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phones during the meeting. Mute your microphone when not reporting out. Item 5. Oh, are there any public comments?
There we go.
For those joining us remotely, if you'd like to comment on any item on the agenda as we proceed, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute yourself. And there are currently no hands for comments.
Okay, hearing no public comments, moving on to item 5, Executive Officers Report. Mark Brown will present the Executive Officers Report.
Good morning, everybody. I'll make this short. And kind of falling back to what I talked about back in May, where we had a significant fire potential outlook, and things were looking fairly rosy and we weren't seeing a lot of red on the map. And I said things are likely to change, especially if we have the dry May that was being predicted, and a dry June and a dry July could start affecting things. So you can see that the September map looks a lot different than the September map that I showed you last month. So like I said at that last meeting, a lot of it's going to depend on the weather that we get between now, September and October, on how things are going to look in those months. But when we had probably 125, 150% average rain, creates a nice herbaceous crop that can lead into spreading fire into the heavier fuel. So it's all going to depend on the wind event and the ignitions in the summer. So anyway, media coverage, we continue to get great coverage both from the print media and TV. And you would have thought that we actually put out a press release on our budget approval, just the way Adrian had covered and the quotes that he included. We didn't put out a press release, but he included the exact quotes that we would have included if we would have put out a press release. So I continue to appreciate the IJA and the coverage that Adrian gives us. And then we have had some opportunity to meet with KTVU, KGO, and some others for some the TV media. And I just want to let you know that the Emberstomp planning is going strong right now. Had an opportunity to meet with the team twice now, including a walkthrough at the fairgrounds on how we're going to kind of tweak the entrance. Whereas if you remember before, when you went in, you had Fire Safe Marin booth over here, and you have the Marin Wildfire booth over here, and it was really easy just to walk right by the Marin Wildfire booth. We're going to have kind of a serpentine path with a timeline of wildfire history in Marin that empties right into the Marin Wildfire booth. So every single person attending will walk through the Marin Wildfire booth, and then the Marin Wildfire booth will be set up by our goals 1 through 5, and then also have some interactive things for people who want to schedule an inspection, people who want to open their reports, people who want to schedule a chipper day, people who want support for grant stuff will all be set up in that booth. So it's going to be Marin Wildfire will be on Front Street.
Great.
So I'll have my screen share and report and take any questions.
Quick question, will IBHS be present this year
Not this
again
year,
to
they were
light a house on
they were
fire?
unable to attend this year.
No.
Not, but we will have
That's
some,
unfortunate.
we will have some interactive and lifetime displays that the IBHS, they were unable to attend this year.
So something perhaps to convey the same ideas
Yes.
about zone zero versus not zone zero.
Correct.
Displays or? will it be
Zone zero is good, zone zero will be on Front Street right next to us. After you, the plan is, and this could change, so don't quote me on this, but after you get out of the Marin Wildfire booth, you're gonna go right into areas that start talking about zone zero.
Okay.
I thought it was Marin Master Gardeners.
Well, yeah, right side by side, yes. Marin Master Gardeners are stepping up big time. You should wait till you see what Marin Master Gardeners is bringing.
Last year was great. I mean, it actually had the scale model of what the garden looked like. It was really terrific.
Yeah.
So one other question, Mark, one of the issues that's arisen is in creating zone zero, the difficulty of finding products that meet that help your fence connect your home, that are compatible architecturally, stuff. I mean, are there any upgrades or updates as far as, what Fire Safe Marin do, what Ember Stomp is going to do to help kind of begin to
Yeah, we
address
actually
that
are
issue for
gonna,
builders?
we're gonna have several contractors there that are gonna be putting that type of material on the slope.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I just signed a $70,000 contract for home hardening,
Wow.
but I can't find stuff for, it's,
Yeah.
we're pulling vinyl siding off and putting a party board, but a contractor can't find products that match my fence to turn it to metal.
Yeah, we actually will be having contractors with that as well.
That's great, thank you.
Okay, do we have any comments from the public or questions about the report?
And there are no hands for comment at this time.
Okay,
One comment.
Yeah.
Could we also have people able to sign up for Alert Marin?
Yeah, that'll be over in the OEM section.
Okay, thank you.
great. Okay, so there's no motion required, so we'll move on to item 6, consent calendar. The opportunity for public comment on the consent calendar items will occur prior to the committee's discussion for the consent calendar. The committee may approve the entire consent calendar with one action, and the alternative items on the consent calendar may be removed by any committee or staff member for separate discussion and a vote. Are there any requests to remove anything from the consent calendar? Hearing none, I will now take public comment on the consent calendar.
There are no hands for comment at this time.
Thank you. So,
I move to approve the consent calendar.
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All in do we need a roll call? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Practice.
Okay.
Good.
Go
get 'em.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 7, discussion items. A, the strategic measures for goal 2, detection, alerts, and evacuation.
And I'll just kick this off real quick, just with the reminder that way back when, we set up our 5 goals. Goal 1 is veg management. Goal 2 is what we're gonna talk about today. Goal 3 is grants. Goal 4 is public outreach education. Goal 5 is peace, space, and home hardening. Charlotte, go get it.
All right. I swear I'll have you out of here before 10:20. Start the timer. Okay. All right. So very briefly, I'll give you a little strategic context, and then we'll dive into the proposed measure that, with I guess, unless there's further comments, will be presented to the board at the end of June for approval. So you've heard about our 5 goals. Today we're discussing specifically the strategic measures around detection, alerts, and evacuation. And that goal reads as showed on this slide. The emphasis is mine. I'll just give you a few seconds. So you can see that the meat of it is wildfire detection, warning and alert system, and then a network of safe evacuation routes and temporary refuge areas. So that's what we have been focusing on with the working group and the ad hoc committee on this goal. So the process so far has been to consult with the working group made of the following members. We've held several meetings to brainstorm and go about the identification of these measures. And then I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, I presented to the ad hoc committee with the following directors who provided feedback, and integrated this feedback in today's presentation. So let's get right to it. There will be, we're proposing 4 strategic measures for this goal. The first one deals with detection. The second one deals with alerts and warning. The third has to do with road safety from a heat perspective. So from the perspective of a resident or an evacuee being on the road during a wildfire. And then the last one has to do with temporary refuge and temporary emergency refuge areas. Okay, so to the first one, detection, what we are proposing is to measure the percent of acres that are visible through 2 different locations to create some sort of a triangulation method, so we have coverage, the best coverage we can for as many acres of the county as possible. So currently this is relying on our network of cameras, and we use a viewshed analysis that could later integrate other means of detection as technology evolves and becomes vetted and is available to improve our viewshed. So you can see the red dots are the current cameras, and the sort of teal area are all the longitudes and latitudes that can be detected through 2 viewpoints. And that's assuming a 50-foot smoke column. If you increase the smoke column, you can see more, but we think this is a good conservative measure. So that would be what we track and what we sort of quantify and look at progress in terms of detection for this goal.
Who's watching this stuff?
The emergency command center has the cameras, and there is AI and other means that sort of like continuously read the image and send notifications and alerts if they see a smoke column. So it doesn't just rely on the human eye, is what I'm trying to say.
Great.
Yeah, the day of lookouts, staff and lookouts are long gone, right, Mark?
We still have them. We still have them.
They're mostly
and-
for fun.
Volunteer if you want. You can volunteer, yeah.
I will say that there was a lot, that there was a recent example of residents being concerned, I believe that they live around China Camp in San Rafael, and providing this image of this viewshed and sort of providing the idea that we can see their location and all around their location through not just 1 but 2 cameras, really had a calming and sort of appeasing effect. So I think it's important to show this image to the public and to visualize what the network looks like. Okay, I'll move on to alerts and warning. So the proposed measure is the number of contacts subscribed to Alert Marin. I want to say a few things about that. As you know, the Office of Emergency Management has recently transitioned to a new vendor for their Alert Marin system. And this system, as I understand it, identifies the locations for which alerts are received and not the person who requests that they receive the location. So it's a little bit different, right? We're essentially, the system counts the number of longitude, latitude points for which people have received, are requesting to receive alerts. So one person, for example, might subscribe to up to 5 locations. And the benefit of this is that it helps tremendously with the ease of signing up. We no longer need people's address. We no longer need their names, their identifier, their demographics. We just need where they want to be subscribed. So it changes a little bit the way we quantify how well we're covered in terms of Alert Marin subscribers, so to speak. But the point is the data is there, and the Office of Emergency Management can analyze the data and report by contrasting with population density if we assume that at least 1 household member would want to be alerted for their home location, essentially. So we can see in a neighborhood where there's very little subscribers for these individual homes on the map, we can say, okay, we need to do a push there and increase, the sign up factor. So for progress tracking purposes, what matters here is not going to be so much the absolute number or even the percentage, because the denominator is going to be, based on population density, which is hard to measure. it will be more, the trend is what's gonna be important, right? We wanna see an increase and then eventually we'll wanna see saturation, so we'll wanna get to a plateau type of scenario here. So that's for alerts and warning.
Are there any
It just-
maximum, I'm sorry, you were gonna say.
I'll go ahead if you want.
No, I
I
just,
was just gonna say, this whole change was driven by just modern technology and changes in the software, but also the states requiring you to be able to do it in multiple languages if you have a certain population that in your county. So it really simplifies things in many ways, and it's just better software. But we no longer use Nexel now, though, in the county. County Marin doesn't use Nexel anymore. So.
And many other municipalities have moved away from Nixle because it's not in alignment with new state laws.
Thank you.
And so it sounds like the way we will, oh, I'm sorry, Bruce.
Well, one discussion we had at the ad hoc meeting was one of the subsets of the data sets of properties and buildings is single-family dwellings. And we had a discussion about tracking the number of single-family dwellings that had subscribed. And we had a combination that in essence, there were some complications about it. Well, there might be two families there, or you never know how many people, everyone. So what have you done with that? I thought that we're going to include that as a subset data point for tracking the number of single-family dwellings. That's at my request.
That will be for, whenever we create these dashboards, we have public facing dashboards.
Yeah.
And then we have dashboards that are meant for staff. That data will be for the staff.
And I just see this as this is a data set that staff can work with whoever is, that work with linking people to Alert Marin to somehow a subset. It could be targeted mailing, it could be canvassing neighborhoods, but if you have a neighborhood that is 30% subscribed as opposed to 90, you might want to knock and do something. That's what I'm saying, is just give you a data point that we can work on to increase subscriptions. So the answer is it'll be there.
It'll be but as a staff resource.
So there's the public strategic measure,
Okay,
and then there is all the analysis that we do with
Yeah.
that data to increase it.
okay.
So what you're discussing is at the analysis level, right? We need to identify action items that we make to move the needle. That's what you're discussing.
Okay,
We're not gonna show a map that identifies exactly which house has not subscribed. I
That's
mean,
great.
I think
No,
that would
that's-
be,
Publicly shaming.
putting people on the spot a little bit too much. But we definitely can do exactly what you're describing, which is analyzing the coverage and looking at neighborhoods where we have only 10% subscribers and decide that that's an action item at the program level that we need to take. That does not mean that we show different data on the public dashboard. It's just
Thank
we use the published dashboard to inform our actions on the program level. Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we got it all covered.
Is there any way to exploit the Firewise neighborhoods to get that sign up increased?
Absolutely. At the program level, we can be very creative with the ways that we do outreach and who we, work with. I think in some neighborhoods we'll want to work through our networks of community-based organizations to get that trust factor, right, where there's fear of like government or this, wanting to not share. So we have different ways depending on the communities, and we can, we have a lot of experts that know what would work best in different areas.
And when did Alert Marin first start in Marin County?
I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Should have warned you.
No, and we can do that. It's easily before 2015.
The shift in subscribe and the ease with which people can sign up is gonna make a big difference. Because it was just a very tedious and cumbersome process until now, and now it's just like that, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments you want to go on?
Yeah, I'm gonna continue, yeah, thank you. Okay, the next one is, the next two are really interesting, a little bit of a novel concept. So, for that network of safe evacuation roads, you remember from our goal, we'd like to propose a concept that we call fire resilient roads. So what we would be measuring is the percent of fire resilient road miles when we are evacuating the residents or the population by car. So I'd like to define fire resilient road quickly. We are proposing that a fire resilient road is a road where the projected the heat inside the passenger car will increase by less than 3 degrees Fahrenheit per minute. So we are essentially looking at the vegetation and the fuels alongside the road and assuming that the car is stopped, not moving, and constantly exposed to the heat generated by all the fuels along the side at the full height of the fire constantly, which is not going to happen, right? Like the fire, even if everything burns on both sides of the road, eventually the fire it just burns, so it's done, right? Or it gets, response comes and it gets out, or it moves along. But for this purpose, we're assuming constant exposure, and we want to be sure that if there's a traffic jam or if the road is blocked, that the passengers in that car will not experience an increase in heat of more than 3 Fahrenheit per minute. That's assuming I would say, older to average car. So not the newest, models that have better materials and protection, but just the oldest to average car. Now, this concept, I just want to say, is the simplification of very complex fire physics, as you can imagine, right? We think it's worth, even though there's a lot of variables and a lot of assumptions we have to make, we have to take into account radiant heat and convective heat and topography and flame length and all that. We think it's a valuable concept for the purposes of identifying road treatment, the areas where roads need to be treated. So I'm going to show you. Briefly. Before I do, I want to kind of tell you how we're doing based on this threshold that we've established of 3 degrees Fahrenheit per minute. So under a west wind scenario in the JPA, we currently have over 78% of our roads that are resilient, and that leaves 419 miles that are not. We will probably not be able to get to 100% resilient roads, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Under Diablo wind, we have a little bit less. Diablo wind's a little scarier. We have just over 68% of our roads that are resilient, leaving 617 miles that are not resilient, where the heat would be increasing inside the car by more than 3 Fahrenheit per minute, sometimes by too much for human tolerance, right? So I think, should I show them? No?
Real quick, yeah,
Okay.
but not during the board meeting.
Okay, so I'll show this real quick here. This is the interface that we have been that we've produced. This is with the help of Willow Labs. So we can easily select a wind scenario. I'll take Diablo, and then select either a Marin Wildfire zone or select a specific road and look at what for each segment of road, whether it's resilient or not resilient. And then if I click on that road segment, it gives me the heating rate. So this particular road heats by 11 degrees per minute, which is too hot, right? It would be a car stopped on that road at that particular segment. It's 100 meter segments at a time, would be exposed to 35 kilowatts per square meter, which is way more than humans can tolerate. We're looking more at like 6 kilowatts per square meter.
And the map that we're looking at right now currently shows fire roads. The public facing map will not show fire roads because we are trying to encourage people to not be on fire roads. But the road that Charlotte picked was a fire road, which is one of the main reasons why we don't want those heat indices. And I'm going to brag a little bit. Nobody has done this ever before.
No, this is astounding. This is a very intelligent, creative, brilliant analytical tool. And so Mark, we own this, I guess, right? We developed, we paid for it, but it's public. It's in the public to share.
It has not been published to the public yet because we're waiting for board approval, and there's a couple of things we need to do. Mask the fire roads. We just actually 2 days ago went through and drove and stopped at a lot of these roads to look at what the analysis was showing us, what the model was showing us versus what we were seeing in reality. We found a couple of adjustments we want to make. So we'll be making those in the next few weeks, and then I think by the time the board approved, we'll be ready to move forward and display this on the dashboard. It won't look exactly like this. This is more of an agency tool. You can see from an agency perspective, they can look at their top, like for a particular zone, look at their top road, like problem children, right? Like which are the roads that I want to treat first. We can extract the data, and so we can tell them, okay, you know, if you're looking at certain areas of your zone, here are the top 10 roads that we think you should look at treating, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of, there's lots of ways to, again, exploit this for programmatic purposes, which is what we're trying to do here, right? At the strategic level, it needs to be a little bit simpler. There's just too many things going on here.
But it's also designed to scientifically demonstrate to our residents that they're safe inside their cars,
Yeah.
rather than going on a firefighter's subject matter expertise. This is going to show them scientifically that you're safe in your car, stay in your car. And down the road, maybe I'm stealing some of Charlotte's thunder, but down the road, what this is going, as Charlotte mentioned, that some of these roads will never become fire resilient. So that will help us inform where we need to make temporary fire refuge areas.
Right.
Don't send
Except
people to
for-
another area.
Or maybe an earlier alert to that.
Or earlier alert is always the first choice.
And when you say fire resilient roads, you're really not talking about the road, you're talking about all the vegetation surrounding the road.
Yes.
Yeah, the factors that influence.
And
Okay,
I want to say that
Roadways
sorry.
is a better way of saying it.
yeah, I just, to me, just sitting here as an average person, I think, oh, so they're gonna change the asphalt on the road.
That's
and
what
make
I
it-
was thinking. Is this a public works thing? Where are we going with this?
I think fire resilient roadway would be a
Okay.
better description.
Okay.
Because roadway to me encompasses.
And I was gonna ask you, is it
Yeah.
dirt roads that are more resilient? Is it?
That's a great question, yeah.
I
So
mean,
it's not the road itself,
Yeah,
it's the heat, the impact of heat to the vehicles that are on the roadway.
and how many
Okay, so-
feet on either side of the road is being measured? Do you, in
The
terms of
vegetation?
vegetation?
I always get confused between meters and feet, so I'm saying 30, but I'm not sure what.
You might wanna put that in there.
Marin Fire is usually 50 foot from the center of the fire road, either side, 50 foot total.
And
Yeah.
and not to go too deep into a hole, but that's one of the things that our data set lacks is road width.
Mm.
So we plan to work with TAM to start working on getting better road width data.
I should have said 25 foot from the center of the fire road.
Yeah.
I think it's really
Yeah.
interesting to keep in mind that it's not as simple as just how much vegetation there's on each side, right? Because depending on the topography, and we
Right.
really
Yeah.
saw this
Yeah.
2 days ago when we drove, the convective heat sometimes is gonna be, and the dashboard allows, so for people who, for our agent, our staff and people who are really looking at this closely and trying to decide where they're gonna put treatment, the dashboard differentiates between the convective heat and the radiant heat, so they can see, is it just that bush, radiating here, or is it because the flames are down below and the
Right.
convective heat is rising and that's what's exposing this car?
And this tool will be used by Marin Wildfire and local jurisdictions to prioritize where to clear vegetation.
And in the future, inform where temporary fire refuge areas need to be created.
Great.
That's the elevator speech right there. Perfect.
Does the software allow you to identify which major roadways would likely be used by the majority of population? That
Yeah.
seems like that
Yeah,
should be a
so-
focus too.
Yeah, so from here, from this data, we can then overlay things like, number of cars by time of day or the scenario. So we're looking at that right now, creating a, essentially you can prioritize many different ways, right?
Mhm.
One way is by looking at the busiest road during evacuation. Another way is looking at the roads where there really truly is no other way to get to a temporary refuge or a safe place.
Right.
So there's all these things that we need to debate, and that actually brings me to my last segment here. So you heard Mark talk about how not all our roads will be fire resilient. Will inevitably be road segments that we cannot treat for whatever reason. And so we think we need to then take the fire resilient road concept, which again assumes constant heat flux on the car, and look at it from the perspective of the evacuation journey. because heat accumulates inside the car as the car travels, right? So the idea of under the fire resilient road concept, you're just measuring at that point in time, the car's not moving. But what we really need to focus on is the evacuation journey. As a car goes from A through B, it's going to go through segments that are fire resilient and segments that are maybe a little hotter, so the heat accumulates inside the car. We need to make sure we can get the evacuees from A to B in a safe manner. So there's a couple of things that are going on in parallel here. I mentioned, the heat flux is not going to be constant. The car is not going to be static. The other one is that around temporary emergency fire refuge areas, the naming convention is still being debated at the federal level. The U.S. Fire Administration is working to establish a classification system and methodology to identify optimal locations for, let's call them temporary fire refuge areas for now. Various communities in Marin are using different names. And we also have to think about this as not necessarily a structure, but it could be a car holding facility where people stay in their car. So we propose to not try to peg down the naming yet, wait for these other discussions to, we have our ideas, what we'd like to propose, and Mark's been advocating in that direction. But for now, it's a little too early to peg this. The other thing is, with your board's approval of this concept, we will move forward to quantify and to analyze the location, capacity, and strategic placement of these temporary emergency fire areas. But it's going to be a certain amount of work ahead of us. We don't have that quite ready at our fingertips, right? We need to take this fire resilient road concept and really untangle it community by community, evacuation zone by evacuation zone. What do you do if the main evacuation route is too hot? What's your plan B? And that's what we have to do here. So I think we're looking at, working with, we need somebody who has a lot of experience in evacuation management. Currently in the county, you need an incident commander, you need somebody who's gone through it multiple times. We'll probably be looking at onboarding a consultant or doing an RFP for this, because it truly is a massive amount of work if you think about each community or evacuation zone, times the weather scenarios, there's 2 at least, times the time of day, and then you throw in which roads are too hot, like it starts multiplying really fast into how do you make sure this community can get out safely. And so that's work for potentially, next fiscal year and the fiscal year after that.
We're forecasting this as a 26-27 project.
Cool.
Yeah. But the concept is still being proposed to the board, so hopefully, it's not as defined as the previous ones, but I think the idea is there, and so we feel like it makes sense to move forward. So that's it for me.
Question, then Charlotte, I saw this briefing before, which is incredible. I'm really thrilled. Fire resilient roads, and I did not understand that it included temporary roads. Which is great. But this data that you provided with us, it's 70% of the west wind are resilient and 68% of the Diablo winds are resilient and numbers of miles. Is that a sum total, or can you break out the public? Most temporary roads that I see, most of them are gated and not accessible. I mean, can you distinguish between roads that we would all be driving on as opposed to the roads that are strategic in nature for fire prevention purposes?
Yeah, I can. So a couple of things on that. The first one is, as I mentioned, we're still making adjustments, right? We just drove this network of roads on Tuesday. There's at least a couple of vegetation types that we want to adjust for. So please don't get married to the numbers that I cited. These are orders of magnitudes for now, more than anything, right? They might change a little bit. The second thing is, as Mark pointed out, this includes the fire roads, which for internal purposes, we probably want to include, but not for external purposes. So that will change the overall number of miles and percentage also. In terms of the gated and private roads as opposed to publicly maintained road, I'll look into that. I'm not exactly sure what the distinction is. I think this picks up everything, but I will check on that.
Yeah, but they are included. That's the magic about this. Gated and private roads, you say? I mean, all roads.
Yep.
solar.
Yeah, and as far as your question about, which you can select here the so-called evacuation routes by, legal definition,
Okay.
right? That's it. I mean, it's very few, as opposed to what Marin Wildfire has historically considered evacuation roads is essentially anything that helps people get out.
Right. The roads that you see here are as defined by Assembly Bill 747 on the evacuation routes.
Good. So I would like to also ask this, what Julie said. Can you start out with definitions what treatment means? Like heat, just instead of treatment, it's too vague. I mean, for me, it's too
That's
vague.
good.
If you say what areas need to be cleaned up and here's how we do it, or, and then radiant heat versus convection, or what was the other term that you used? And where they are coming from, the radiant heat is stream right next to the road, but there's other heat that comes from other sources uphill. Those are things that I think,
So I can do that.
Yeah.
I just will look for the group for feedback because I had that in my ad hoc presentation. It just makes the presentation much longer. So I'll
Well,
take
it's just
your.
those few words, how much longer? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be argumentative, but
No,
No.
If you
please.
just-
I like the feedback. I just.
if you just say, this is it's like a glossary, or maybe put a glossary at the beginning of your, what that
Would you
means.
have a couple more slides? Is that what you're referring to, or?
I'm just trying to keep it to 10 minutes. This is what.
No, I mean, what would you add if?
Well, I
to
mean,
that question?
you add
Like this one?
terminology.
Yeah.
No, probably not this one. I
Okay.
mean, it sounds like just definitions of convective heat versus radiant heat. I can do that.
That would be great.
Yeah. And
And then
treatment.
Martina did a little research. Alert Marin was 2015.
2015, you're fast.
Wow. Okay. All right, this is excellent. Any other comments or questions? It
I
was
think this is
really,
amazing.
it
Yeah,
is.
it
First, I think. That's great, all right.
I don't know if you took public comment.
Okay, so now I'll bring this back, take public comment on this item.
And there are no hands for comment at this time.
Hearing no public, we will then, this doesn't require a motion, this is accept the report. Thank you so much, Charlotte, it's wonderful. We'll move to item 9, Board of Directors Agenda Review for the next meeting, which will be not on the 19th, but on the 26th. So Mark.
Absolutely, and correct me if I'm wrong, Martina, but when we did the doodle poll, 2 to 4 was
The winning time.
had more people than 3 to 5.
Yes.
So January 26th, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
January.
2 to 4.
This day, most start with J.
Starting with the J.
June 26th,
Good.
from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. If you guys want to wait till January, we can. My bad, sorry about that. The agenda's fairly, as you can see, fairly cut and dried. We are gonna have the addition of a couple, 2 or 3 projects for environmental approvals added to the consent calendar. We are also gonna be adding a grant that we are receiving from Cal Chiefs for some urban conflagration planning. And not yet ready for prime time. I'm waiting to hear back from Marin Community Foundation. We may be receiving a grant from the Marin Community Foundation, which will have some very positive trickle-down ramifications if that is approved. We should know by that meeting, because if we are awarded the grant, we have to accept the grant prior to June 30. So the timeline is pretty short. And then, of course, remember the information item for our board president and vice president nominees to be able to display how awesome they will be as vice president and president.
Compliments will get you everywhere. Okay, so any other comments, suggestions? Okay, great. All right,
For the
so
board of for the agenda, right?
for the agenda.
Yep.
Hearing none, do I have to go out to the public for this one? No, yes.
Generally, I have you. in case.
Oh, well, it's, okay. So, do I hear any comments from the public on requests for the future agenda?
There are currently no hands for comment.
Hearing none?
I do have a suggestion
Oh, good.
that the Marin Biomass Project is in its 3rd year. And for those of you who don't know, it's a project that's taking a look at the movement of material off the landscape into whatever environment. It took a look at biomass, where it goes to, and where it could go to optimize greenhouse gas benefits, environmental benefits. And we are coming to closure in the project. And I think it's time, Mark, suggesting that it probably ask Bill to, or the team, I'm on the team steering committee, to give a presentation on, there's 5 findings or 6 findings, I think, and recommendations. And they have implications for siting of processing facilities, reopening a sawmill that's been closed for several years, and the economic impacts of greenhouse gas and environmental. So I suggest that we consider that maybe to the executive committee first, and
Is the report completed yet?
test it out.
Is the report completed yet?
The chapter 5 is. If I can get Chad to put a period on, that'll be discussion today. So I'll have final, we have a meeting at noon to talk about the final, but we're past the closure timeline. We're actually 2 months past. And the message today is close this thing out and let's report out. There are implications for our activities, what we could do, some specifications about like chipper day, where our chipper stuff goes. There could be cost savings to chipper folks instead of taking it and spending $30 a ton, $40 a ton to drop it off. There could be a biochar facility, for example, that would take it at no cost. So, I mean, they're economic and environmental
You
benefits.
can mix this with sewage sludge and you can make compost out of it. And actually Kellogg's nitro humus in LA is LA poop. Connect with chips
Yeah,
in it.
you'll
Yeah.
miss the discussion today, but an agenda item is, the Novato Sanitary District is working with an entrepreneur to site a pilot facility in Novato that will start moving biomass and pushing into biochar, then moving into processing other green material and the waste from the sanitary district. And they're looking at siting a facility here in Marin County that will do that very same thing.
Good.
Mark, it'd be helpful to know how much of our chips are being moved somewhere else.
We have all that data.
Okay, because what I see is them leaving them on site mostly, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, we have that data.
We have in the report, the numbers for this, and those are the kind of questions that can be asked and answered.
And then for, are we on, since we're on, I think we're on future agenda items.
Yes.
Just so you know, we're looking to not have an executive board meeting in July, and we'll go back having an executive board meeting in August.
Okay, we'll clear the calendar.
I wouldn't clear it yet, but
So no executive meetings, that means there's no board meeting,
and remember, we can have a board meeting without an exec,
right,
and we can have an exec without a board,
right.
but I'm looking at canceling both for July.
Okay, that's what I need to hear that. Clear on that.
Unless you need approval for receiving a grant or
I
something.
would wait until after the 26th to fully clear out your calendar.
Okay,
Okay.
great, thank you, Mark.
Any other comments, suggestions? Okay, great, then we're on to item 11. Do I need a vote for adjournment? Okay, so then we are adjourned and the time is 10:43.
Great,
Wow,
efficient.
43.
Well done.
Thank you for the script.